Intermediate Pastel Drawing, Video 2, Working with Pastels. Okay, now we are ready to start filling in our sketch with our pastels. I've actually started outlining the major lines from the sketching, and at this point I'm mostly just framing in the areas that are going to be filled in with pastel, and I'm trying to separate the sections kind of like a paint by number, if you will, without the numbers. You want the areas that you need to have certain colors to be filled into, you want to separate that out so you know where the colors need to go. But again, you're not worried about the details, the little minor details at this point. It's just getting the area situated to put the color into and know that you're going to keep the proportion and keep everything where it needs to be. You'll notice I am not drawing lines for her face, for Amy's face. I will do a little bit on her hands at some point, but right now the major details are going to be the horse. It's going to be where you start. Again, working from the center of the picture is a great way to start. But for me, most importantly, I like starting with the eyes. I think if you can capture the personality or the character of a person or the animal, whatever it is you're drawing, if you can capture it in the eyes, then the rest of the painting or drawing is going to go great. So that's, for me, one thing that I like to start with is the eyes. So once I'm done getting all these lines sketched in with the pastels and ready to start filling in the areas, I'll start off in the area of the eye. I've laid off to the side. You can see I've got a little bit of a section of pastels already chosen out. I've gone through and I've picked out of the ones that I have all the colors that I want to use in this drawing. So a lot of them are brown tones, beige, ivory. I will have white pastels in there eventually that I'm going to add to my little collection here. And I don't want to be going back and forth in the box and back and forth and where I'm keeping my pastels, because then you get other colors on your fingers and you get remnants of pastels that you don't want to have those colors in your drawing. So I try to keep it all aside and weed through it ahead of time so I don't have less to worry about. You can see here, after I've gotten the major lines drawn out with the pastels, that I've gone in and I've taken, smoothed out, giving you a little bit of pointer here on the different types of pastels I've used. The thumbs up one, that's Rembrandt brand pastels, great for having like a clay type texture almost, very dense and brilliant colors, intense color, great pigmentation in those pastels. The smaller one that I held up, the brown one, is a lesser brand, less expensive pastel that I typically will use the least expensive pastels for the base coat of what it is that I'm drawing, because it's a lot easier to spread. It spreads more evenly on the paper and covers a larger area, and then I'll go over that base coat with the good top quality pastels, and then that way you have the better pigments and the more rich, vibrant color on the top layer. Will last a lot longer too. So you can see here I've gone through, and based off where the initial lines are, you can still see that line underneath the smoothed out pastels because I've given it a darker color to do the lines. So now you can kind of, underneath that rusty colored brown, you can still see where you need to have your definition between your shading and your highlights. So here I'm once again spreading the rusty color. I've got the pastel laid on its side. That way it spreads a little bit more evenly, and you'll see it's quite easy to spread, and I'm trying not to go over the lines that I've made, but kind of go around the lines so I can still see, okay, this is the edge. I need to make sure I don't smooth out this edge right here. that there's a break between that, and when you smooth it out, it will not be as dark in those areas, so you know where you got to go back over with the darker colors to put in the shadows and make sure everything is still where it needs to be, so you can find where you need to be at to keep things proportionate and accurate to the drawing. So now that I've finished putting that base coat on the jawbone and the cheekbone of the horse, now I'm going to go in, again, focusing on the eye, and I'm going to just do all the shading. That's the first thing I'm going to do. The highlights I typically do at the end, because it's, you know, and you need to clean your hands throughout the time that you're drawing. Right here, using charcoal is really messy on the fingers, especially since I don't wear gloves or anything like that. So little is better than more when you're doing finer details with the charcoal, because it doesn't take much charcoal to go a long way in the shading. If you do too much, then you have to keep going back and trying to, you know, lighten it up again. It's a lot harder to lighten it up than it is to put it on lightly and keep it from being too dark. So that's my recommendation here, is, you know, moderation. Not too much of the charcoal, or you'll find yourself, you know, trying to cover your mistakes and trying to, you know, fill in, and then it gets frustrating and easier to just start from scratch by that point. So now that I have the shading complete here on the section of the eye, I'm going in with a more of an ivory color than a brilliant white, and giving the eye some definition. So I'm adding some highlights. I'm not trying to make it stand out from the page. I'm just trying to give it definition. So the lighter color, you know, without it being a brilliant white, is effective in doing that. If you had like sun shining on the eye and reflecting off the eye, then of course a brilliant light, like a brilliant white colored chalk or pastel would certainly give it a lot more definition. But according, you know, looking at the photograph, it's a subtle light. It's not like a very sunny day, so you don't want to overdo it. You want it to be kind of accurate and true to life. I will have a little bit of liberty here by adding just a tad bit of definition to the eyeball, because in the photograph there's really no reflective quality to the eyeball, so it kind of has a hollow feel. So I will add a little dot, you know, just a little bit of highlights to the eyeball itself, just to give it that rounded, you know, definition and make it seem a little bit more true to life and reflective. And here I'm going through and I'm doing a certain texture with my finger. Instead of smoothing it out with a solid sweep, I'm dabbing it with the tip of my finger, which gives it a little bit more of a texture, makes it seem more like fur than just, you know, a clean swipe. The paper I'm using also is textured, so it's not going to be a very sharp, precise image. There is going to be a little bit of texture to the paper, so it gives the drawing itself some texture, and it's not going to be as sharp of a picture, which our initial image we're using is not sharp either, so it's very effective. And this is pretty much the eye.